Hey guys, I'm Mark,
I'm Alon.
and welcome to another episode of The Next Man Up. Well, hey man, welcome to another episode of the Next Man Up podcast, where we are helping fathers guide their sons into manhood, because we believe that when boys become healthy and godly men, everyone benefits. You know this. I am Mark Stanifer. I'm excited to be here today. This episode marks 100 so far. So woohoo, cheers to us. We've got some cool things planned for you today. Some surprises. We got another voice that we're going to bring into the conversation for the very first time. Excited about that. Okay, as I said, I am excited about this episode. I've been looking forward to this episode for a while, episode 100, and really, it feels like we just got started yesterday, and we're not done. So let me bring in the others that are in the room. Of course, you know my partner in crime, Alana Guste. Good to see you again, my friend.
Good to see you too, Mark. Good to see you too.
This is always a thrill when we get to do this.
100 times.
So thank you. That's right. Can you believe
100
that?
100 times, buddy. That's pretty cool.
You say that like oh my gosh, 100 times.
Well, it's been a lot of work, Mark. No, I'm just kidding. No, 100 is sweet, right? I mean,
it is cool.
We've been doing this for a while now, and to think that this conversation started at a coffee shop with you and I,
yeah,
and then 100 episodes later.
How about that?
That's pretty sweet.
And this was your idea, just in full disclosure. The podcast was your idea.
On,
I was a little intimidated, like, you want me to pod what? But I'm so glad you suggested this.
I'm glad you went along, man.
It's been a good ride,
yeah.
And I'm looking forward to more. We got some good ideas and some changes coming, and just excited about all of that.
Totally excited.
So we've got a new voice in the room, and this is part of the excitement today. We've been holding on to this one for a bit, waiting for episode 100 to debut. Mr. Josh Wilson. He's joined the Next Man Up team, and today he's joining us on the podcast. Josh, it's great to have you on this.
Man, it's great to be here.
So it's so cool, and I won't recount the way all this came together, but clearly the two of you guys know this was a God thing from the beginning. The way all three of us have now come together. Clearly, Alon and I, we've recounted that, but the way Josh and us came together at the right time, at the right place, it's just really a God thing, and it's fun to see how that has happened. And the energy and the skill and the excitement that you have brought into this conversation, the fresh ideas, the perspective, the experience and the technical expertise in your field that you've brought to this, is fantastic. So I know you, and Alon knows you even better than I do, but probably nobody else listening knows who you are.
Probably not.
No. Probably not, unless you recruited a bunch of your friendlies to start listening, which would be fantastic. But let's assume that nobody on the other end of this knows who Josh Wilson is. Start, Josh, by just giving us a brief recap of who you are, what you do, and kind of what brings you into this space.
Well, I've spent the last 15 years or so in church and ministry communications. And really the last 20 probably in ministry in some form or fashion. And since I moved out here to Columbus about 10 years ago, I've been doing video production and marketing, communications and that sort of thing as part of a large church here in Columbus. So that's kind of like, I guess, my technical background, but really I look at all that stuff as kind of an aside to really just wanting people to do life better.
So family, tell us a little bit about family and kind of your stats there. Like,
So I'm married, coming up in 4.5 years. So this year is number 5 for us in September, which is really fun. I have a 17-month-old son. His name is Kai, and he's really cute.
Yeah, cute kid.
You're not biased at all.
No, not biased at all. And I have a sister who lives down in North Carolina, and my parents are still around as well. They travel around the country and visit national parks, and that's pretty cool. Yeah.
So I know that you've been thinking about this topic of manhood and rite of passage for some time. But I feel like now that you have your own son, it's as if it's taken on a different sense for you, maybe a different level of importance for you. And talk about that, some of that transition in your own thinking.
Yeah, there's an urgency that happens when you have a son of your own.
Yeah.
It changes your focus about what you're doing with your life, and it changes it changed for me the intent of how I'm living my life. So it's no longer about me or me and my wife or me and my friends or me and my church community or whatever else. Now it's like I've got a young boy who is looking to me for all of his cues of what it means to be a man, what it means to be a husband, what it means just to be a good person. And I want to make sure that I am doing the best I can to set him up for success and give him the best example that I can. And it's really been in the last year. The first 6 months is kind of the new dad sleep deprived haze where you're not all your thoughts are really connecting together. But about a year ago, I just found that I was experiencing this shift in the way I was thinking about just being a man. Having someone copying me changes things. And I'm sure that's been a similar experience for the two of you and for our listeners as well. There's an urgency that happens when a son shows up on the scene.
Yeah. Well, it's cool because the intersection of your desire in like a human or a professional capacity to help people be better, and now experiencing the responsibility of being a father and helping your boy to grow up and I'm looking at the sign on my wall, help him to flourish, right? And to help others around him to flourish. And then the intersection of what we're doing about, or what we're about here, it feels like it all just began to align for you right around the same time.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we started talking, Mark. We started talking about in October, I think, of last year.
Yep.
Started talking about the Next Man Up, what we're doing here, and kind of what you were looking to do in the future, and the gap that the Next Man Up was trying to fill in our culture in some small way. And when you started sharing that, I was like, this is really cool. This could change some things. This could move the needle for some people. And so when you invited me to come help with the next season of Next Man Up, I couldn't say no. That seemed out of place. So I mean I had to say yes, especially with my son coming out behind me. Like I said, there's that urgency of like, I need to do something. I need to be thinking about it now because, 5-6 years down the road, you're starting to lose ground. Like if you start now, there's so much more that you can do, so much more that I could do to set the stage well for that transitional period of the teenage years. So
I think that's an excellent point. You and I were talking with somebody a couple of weeks ago at an event, and that person asked, he's got young kids. That guy asked, like, when do I get started with this? And you and I both looked at each other and essentially said the same thing. Now. And his kids, I think, are in the 4 to 6, maybe 8. I don't know if his boy is that old, but kind of in the 4 to 6 range. We talk about that early teen, that preteen age being a pretty pivotal age in the development as the boy begins to really mature. But in terms of starting a process, thinking about the process, engaging well as a father with intent and purpose, it can start from the beginning. In fact, it can even start before the beginning, right? Which is kind of a little bit of your story, just thinking about things, and then they begin to coalesce when Kai makes a scene. But it really is the sooner you get started thinking about this and leaning in, the better off you're going to be and your son's going to be down the road. It just, it's kind of like the interest in a financial investment. The more time you have, the more benefit you get from that compounding. And so it's just cool to hear you kind of talk along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a saying that I'm going to butcher here, but the best time to start was last year, and the next best time is now. Like, there's no time that's too early. I suppose there's probably some time that's too early. Like trying to think about how to build a journey for your son when you were 6 years old. Like a little,
That's
a little
an
ahead of the
extreme
curve, a little extreme. But I don't think there's any time that's too early to start, and there's no time that's too late to start. So, I mean, now's the time to start.
Yeah.
That's where I'm going with that.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
So you mentioned the fall of last year, early winter, we started having a conversation. We were kind of in a season here at the Next Man Up of feeling like there's all this opportunity, there's potential, there's certainly a need for quality men out in our culture, in the workplace, in the church, in home. But that we needed to go through some growth and some foundation building on our own to be ready to take that next step as an organization and move into the future. And boy, I got to tell you, Josh, you've been a complete godsend in that way. And I know I've told you that before, but just the structure, the help that you've been able to bring to clarify what we're all about, to be more intentional, more to connect the dots better in what we're doing, so that we can be more effective at reaching the folks, the dads with sons that we're trying to reach, and communicate in a way that resonates with them. In fact, if you've been listening to us for the past number of episodes, you will know that the phrase, we believe that when boys become healthy and godly men, everyone benefits. You will recognize that as relatively new. That is some of the discipline and the experience and structure that Josh is bringing to our organization. And it's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic, because I think it really helps to clarify what we're about and why we're about this effort. You could look around and see all kinds of need out there in terms of dads and men, but why for the Next Man Up? Why? Well, because we believe that when boys become healthy and godly men, everyone benefits.
Agreed. I just like you.
Well, thanks, Alon.
Yeah.
And Alon and I have known each other, well, almost since I moved out here to Columbus. And
yeah, man.
And it's funny, Mark and I started talking, you and I started talking in October, November, but a couple years before we even met, Alon and I had some discussions along these lines at a little coffee shop over a couple afternoons. And we just couldn't figure out how to put rubber to the road on it. We couldn't get traction on it, and we kind of had some other things that took our attention. But when Alon and you, Mark, started putting this together, I was like, this makes sense. Like there's some action behind the ideas. Yeah. So I've really appreciated what you guys have built here, and I'm just honored to be part of the process and provide any help that I can. So
it's good.
So, Alon, for some of our new listeners or those that haven't been with us from the beginning, can you just recap why you wanted to be a part of this? Like why this strikes at your heart, and the work that we're doing here, how it aligns with who you are and how you're wired, and why it matters for you?
For me personally, like I did not have a father figure in my life for a long time. Like I didn't have that. And so flying blind is I know what that feels like. And it wasn't until, my father-in-law, Ray, until he came into my life that I started having that father figure and started noticing other mentors in my life that were trying to help me fly from a boy into a man. And it's that's a hard thing to live with. And so I know that there's boys out there who are looking for that. And then as a dad myself, like I want my son to be I want my son to jump into manhood with like the best strength that has to do that. And in order for him to like walk this journey out well, I have to do my part. And so it's twofold for me. It's me as thinking back as a boy, like how hard it was to like figure this thing out until someone came along and started helping me. And then two, I want my son and the boys that I get connected with through the many adventures that I have like in life, from being a youth pastor for a while, now working in a middle school with young boys in the grades of 5th grade through 8th grade. Like I want to help them as much as possible walk this thing out and start their journey or continue on their journey as much as I can. And so this is actually a really important conversation to me. It's an important conversation to have with you and with Josh and with those who are listening, because we as dads, we need help. We need a place that we can like talk through these things or hear other people talk through these things and figure out what it looks like to be a man and help our sons do that.
I've watched culture from a distance for a long time, never feeling like an expert or a thought leader on how to move culture or anything like that, but just aware. One of the gifts God has given me is the ability to observe. Yeah. So I just see, and what I've seen for a long time is that we just don't have healthy and strong men. Now we have physically strong men. They play on Sunday afternoons on the gridiron, or they're on the big screen or whatever. We have physically strong men, and we have this caricature of what manhood is supposed to be, just from the different messages and the voices that have poured into society. But I've just felt like for a long, long time, we have not had deep, strong, healthy men. And so this has been on my heart for a number of years. But it began to coalesce for me when I realized there's a man-making process. And we have forgotten the process in our economic change, in our move from agricultural dwelling to more city and urban dwelling, in our advancement of technology. We've forgotten what it was like to go from boy to man. And the further away we've gotten from that, the more we've just been, as a society, as a culture, we've been wondering, well, what does it mean to be a man? What does that look like? Is it him? Is it him? Is it this guy over here? Is it that guy over here? We did an episode a while back called, the 10 most masculine men. I don't know if you remember that or not, but it was just like, so what was it that made these guys masculine and manly? Yeah. But I felt like for me, it just began to coalesce, and partly in my own journey and in my journey as a father, when I realized boys don't become men simply because they become an adult. They need a process. And if we can reintroduce that process into the growing up period for boys, we can make a difference. We can make a huge difference. Now, you guys know me. Listeners might not fully appreciate this. You guys know me. I am not necessarily the glass is half full, the ever optimist, the always talking about the big things. But I am convinced, in my heart, I'm convinced that this can change the world. If we can put more healthy and godly men out into the world, it can make a difference. And boy, if that isn't compelling enough, then I don't know what is.
I mean, that's the reason why I came on board. Like, that was the vision that I wanted to be part of. And I mean, I feel like our listeners, like, we want to call you into that as well. Like, we want you to be part of that vision of changing the world for the better by creating strong men, being strong men ourselves, but also helping our sons become those strong men. I read a while back about the shift from a character-based culture to a personality-based culture. Are you familiar with that shift? Have you heard that before?
No.
I can't remember where I read about this, but kind of the pinnacle of that shift in our culture is expressed in the book How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Okay.
There's a shift that happened as you move from agrarian society to industrial society, where because we didn't know people that well, we would take what our opinion of them from our first impressions of them. And so the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, is all about how do you get people to like you based on the kind of personality that you are. Are you outgoing? Are you friendly? Are you interested in other people? Are you curious? Do you ask good questions? Do you listen? Those sorts of things. Before that, though, was character-based culture, because you lived in very tightly knit communities where your character mattered because it lasted with you your entire life. You weren't going to move out of your hometown for the most part. And so your character was who you were. Your reputation was everything. That was at least in the United States, that was the whole thing about, like, your word is your bond. And that shift that has happened has caused a lot of men to just act really nice and have great personalities, but there's no foundation underneath them to support that. I think you have to have both. You have to you have to be personable. You actually have to be like a pleasant person to be around and care about other people. That's important.
It's nice, for sure.
It's a nice thing to have. But if it's not built on a foundation of character, then you'll do whatever you need to in order to be liked in the moment, because it's not tied to anything. And there's like a whole bunch of, other philosophical stuff about moral relativism and all that kind of stuff we won't get into. But one of the things that's missing in building that foundation of character is an apprenticeship model for how to become a man, because it's not like there's not like a machine that you put a boy into and at the end they pop out a man. Like, that's not it's not how this works. Right. It's way more organic than that. There's an apprenticeship process, a time of being together, relating with each other as a father and a son, that will form that boy into a man over time. And it's not going to look the same for everyone. It's an apprenticeship, and you're learning the trade of manhood, in a sense.
In Robert Bly's book, Iron John, he talks about like almost this physical substance that passes from the father to the son during that type of apprenticeship period where the two are spending long amounts of time together. He describes it as like there's this physical material that even transfers from father to son in kind of like this mythological type of way. But it's what I'm thinking listening to you talk.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there is that. Well, maybe not physical. I don't know what you want to call it, but there is something that transfers. Like, it's like I notice it when I see a kid have an aha moment. Like something, it's almost like something flips from your file to their file. It's like, and they catch it, and what is caught is something that they feel is this is true for me. I need to hold on to this. This is real for me. I need to hold on to this. This is whatever for me. I need to hold on to this. And that which is caught begins to be lived out. And so, like, as you were saying that, I think of moments that I've had with my son where there have been the aha moments, and he's caught something, and it's almost physical.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
You can
almost
see
physical. You can almost see it. Like, oh, that's why you do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That seems very important. I'm going to hold on to that one, and I'm going to file this here. You know, it's really cool to see that happen.
That is cool. So this really is the essence of what the Next Man Up is about. So we're continuing to commit to this mission, to this ever expanding conversation, inviting fathers to engage, putting a tool back into a toolbox the tool's been lost and buried for a while. And I feel like a little bit of archaeology here. We've dug it up, and we're gonna modernize it a little bit, customize it a little bit for sure, but put it back in the toolbox of the Father, so that we can make a significant difference. We have introduced a couple of things so far this year, like our new website, which that's all thanks to Josh. If you have not been out to the website, then you may not know that we have a new guide that you can take advantage of. Talks about the 4 things that boys need to become a man. If you've been listening for a while, maybe you've picked up on some of those things. But if you're interested, go out to the website, find that guide, share that guide with others, point others to that. And as you might expect, we're working on some new and additional content that we'll reveal to you as it becomes more clear and as time goes on. But this is our commitment to you and to the cause that we're in it. We're engaged. We're going to do our best to make a difference because we believe that it matters. And so here's our ask of you. Would you help us get the word out? You can share this podcast. You can share this episode. This is kind of a nice recap of why we do what we do. If there's somebody in your circle that is in this space that might benefit from listening, then do us a favor and share. Share the website, the information, even just initiate a conversation with somebody around, hey, what are you doing to help your son become a man? Or how do you define manhood? I've asked people that, and typically it's not on the tip of their tongue because it's not something that we regularly think about. Mm-hmm. So what would it look like to engage your peers with that question? Anyway, just a couple things that you can take away from this episode to continue the cause, further the conversation, and help the message to spread out further. So as we move forward in the podcast, you're going to hear more of Josh. You're going to continue to hear Alon. And we're just excited for the next 100 episodes to see how that unfolds over the next coming years. So, Josh, fantastic to have you part of the team. Thank you for lending your voice to the podcast now. It's great to have you part of us. Alon, always good for you and I to spend time together. It's fantastic, and I guess we need to indoctrinate Josh into the typical exit here.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
The way we land the plane. So, we'll just set it up this way, listeners. It's been good having you with us. Until next time, adios.
Adios.
Hey listeners, thanks for journeying with us on this Next Man Up podcast. We would love to hear from you. Maybe you have a question or an idea, perhaps a topic for us to consider. If that's you and you want to reach out to us, you can get us at feedback@thenextmanup.com. That's feedback@thenextmanup.com. Again, we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, we'll see you later.